little cooler for the weekend. It's going to be cool right on through Monday, so live with it. Then we'll be back up into the 50s. Right now, Arnie Rothschild is on right now from the Assembly Republicans. And, Arnie, good morning. How are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great. Good morning. How are you?
Interesting story about Bill Magee here. And I was just working on a project that talked about some of the crazy things that come out of the Assembly and Senate in New York City. These New York City Democrats. Everything from, free college for illegal immigrants to changes in health care and microstamping, and the list goes on and on. You're saying some news came out of Bill Magee yesterday that is not overly positive.
No, it's really discouraging. But let's back up to the insanity of the Democrat conference in the Assembly.
Yeah.
First of all, we have to understand we're upstate New Yorkers. But there's 150 New York State Assembly seats throughout the state. 91 of those seats are east of the Tappan Zee Bridge. Yeah. So, it's kind of a New York City versus the rest of us kind of war in terms of how life works. In Bill's case, here's the guy who was the chairman of the Assembly Agriculture Committee. And he votes along with the New York City proposal to cut funding to farmers from $31 million to $14 million. And, this is a guy, an upstater.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be sensitive to our issues, not downstate.
Well, and what we find interesting, say, for instance, you take an Anthony Brindisi and a Joe Griffo that really work together here, Democrat, Republican, because the way of life is a different way of life. The thought of microstamping, we look at that much differently than a Republican or a Democrat in many cases downstate.
Yeah, right. Look, but it's an ongoing list.
Yeah.
In this proposed Assembly Democrat budget, there's $15 million to support Safe Act gun grabs. There's a complete disconnect from the way we live, as opposed to New York City, and it's driven by New York City interests. We have to recognize, that the Republican conference fights for upstate and trying to hold these costs down. Joe Griffo, by the way, does a wonderful job in the Senate doing these things, but it's out of control.
Yeah, please explain to me the theory, because I try to go into everything with an open mind. I try. So, and by that, like earlier this morning, we spoke with Deborah Glick, who is against the bill in the Assembly that would reverse the ban on mixed martial arts in New York State. So I'm trying to understand. I believe that Sheldon Silver was his was all about a union deal, a backdoor deal out of these casinos in Vegas, a whole big drawn-out issue about unions. But I truly believe that Deborah Glick's heart is in the right place. So I can understand. I disagree with her. I think she's going to lose this week. But I understand her heart is in the right place. But please, for the love of God, can you explain to me how we taxpayers, funding the education, the college education of illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, how does that make any sense? Explain it to me. I don't get it.
Well, there's no explanation because it doesn't make sense. The only explanation in terms of leveraging of votes is that, like John Selko is running against Bill Magee. So what you're going to see is a movement of New York City Assembly funds to support Bill's reelection campaign.
Right.
And as a result of funding the reelection campaign, with that quid pro quo is there's going to be a number of votes where we're going to need you to support them, and you're going to support them. And, as sad as that is, that's the reality once funds support an election. But in this particular situation, Bill is sticking a pitchfork in the back of farmers of upstate and cutting $17 million. I mean, this is the chairman of the Agricultural Committee supporting
who's upstate in an agricultural area. I just don't know how that. I don't know how you cut that by that number. I don't know how you cut it to begin with, but by that number is a tough cut.
Well, you would think that if you're the chairman, you stand in the well of the Assembly screaming to hold the money in. And ultimately you say to leadership, look, you got to do what you got to do for New York City. But I've got to do what I've got to do for farmers in my district, for businesses in my district. You know, it's ludicrous. We're talking about supporting a $15 minimum wage. That may work in New York City, where, you know, muffins cost $12. But the truth of the matter is small businesses in upstate will go out of business. Family farms will go out of business. It just is not there. It's not realism to assume that downstate and New York City interests are the same as ours.
And you know, you hear about this all the time where votes are made, and if you're in a race, I mean, I know there's a reality. There's some reality to this. You're in a race, and, you know, there's certain elements of a budget. Obviously, he's voting on a budget which includes certain items. In order to get A, B, and C, he's got to give up, you know, D, E, F. But normally, don't you see that the Democrats would say, all right, listen, Magee, you're in the middle of a potential fight up there, so we're going to give you a pass. We're not asking for your vote here.
Well, what's happened, you know, your point is in theory correct, and there's a difference between the way that the Democrat conference works and the Republican conference works. The Democrat conference members are told to vote in lockstep. In the Republican conference, Minority Leader Kolb has encouraged members of the conference to vote in the interest of their district. And so it's two different mindsets of disciplining. In one mindset, and this is a hangover, by the way, from the Sheldon Silver era, the mindset is, really, if you want money, you're going to vote the way I tell you. It is not accidental that in a recent Siena poll, 89% of New Yorkers felt that Albany was corrupt. It's not accidental. Yeah.
All right. Somebody's asking this question, and I'll try to word it this way, saying how is Magee any different than what you see out of Assembly Republicans who are voting against a budget because of 3 or 4 different items that are there in the budget that they don't agree with, yet it means they're voting against something that would benefit their district.
Well, there's a problem that we have in New York State that is unique in terms of the legislative process, and we call it the 3 men in the room. And basically, what you have is the governor, the majority leader of the Senate, and the Speaker of the Assembly, and they put together a package. But if you see every meaningful economic reform that's been done over the last few years, it's come in first step from the Assembly Republicans. Now, understand, let's go back to that 91 members, 91 members that are east of the Tappan Zee Bridge. Ultimately, we get overwhelmed. You know, our 42 members get overwhelmed in that 150-person body. So you have a choice. You either vote against an aggregate budget because there's no ability to vote against one line to make a statement so you can live to fight another day, or you just kind of passively say, oh, okay, we'll vote for something we know is wrong because of these 4 items.
Arnie Rothschild is with the Republican Assembly Campaign Committee. Big year, and how do you think this national campaign could affect the state races? I mean, this mess that we're looking at the presidential level.
Well, I think we're going to see one of the most unusual anti-incumbent moments in time that we've ever seen. Those people who have forgotten their districts, are going to pay a price. I don't think there's any question. I mean, the approval rating of the House of Representatives is 12%. And that sounds dramatic until you realize that, again, let's go back to that Siena poll of a week or two ago. 89% of people believe that Albany is corrupt. Therefore, only 11% support what Albany does.
Right.
So what we're going to be fighting to do with candidates like John Sulka and other candidates, primarily from the Hudson Valley West, is we're going to say, you know what, the only way we can change this is to change the people. You can't fix the Assembly with the same people that broke it to begin with.
Arnie, this is going to be an amazing year in politics. It already really has been. The year leading up to this has been incredible, and I really do believe, I think you're right, this is going to bleed into your local and state races. Arnie Rothschild, again, thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Got a break. Here's Christine with an update, 847.